hockey friends and families around the world, and welcome to another episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. I'm Lee Elias, joined by my co-hosts and best friends in the world, Mike Benelli and Christy Casciano Burns. And our guest today is someone whose impact on youth hockey goes far beyond the rink. Rob Thorsen is the founder of the Shoulder Check Foundation and HT40 Foundation, two organizations dedicated to protecting kids, educating families, and changing the culture around safety in youth sports, something I know if you listen to this show, you are very interested in. Rob's work is rooted in personal loss, but also in courage, leadership, and an unwavering commitment to making the game safer for the next generation. Through education, advocacy, and community engagement, he's helping parents, coaches, and organizations rethink how we teach contact, respect, and responsibility in hockey. And I know from the past on this show, when we do episodes about contact, we get massive listens. So I'm going to thank the audience ahead of time for enjoying this one. And today we're going to talk about Rob's journey, the mission behind Shoulder Check and HT40, what families need to understand about safety and culture in youth hockey, and how we can all do better for our kids. It's in the title of the show. Rob, welcome to Our Kids Play Hockey.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I'm super happy to be here today, and thank you for that introduction.
Thank you, buddy.
Rob, your work has been absolutely impactful and tremendous. We appreciate you being here. We know that you launched Shoulder Check in 2023 to honor your son, Hayden. Tell us about him, tell us what happened, and why you felt the need to help others.
Yeah. Hayden's was a hockey player, right? First and foremost, this was my connection here with you all would be, amongst a lot of other things that he was as a young man. And he passed by suicide in May of 2022, and he was 16 years old. And when he passed, a lot of people kind of reached out, kids, parents, teammates, everybody, in letters and in texts and in person and at their own dinner tables. And a lot of folks asked the question, who's going to do what Hayes did for us now that Hayes is gone? And it took not but a minute to realize what they meant by that. Hayes was the guy who checked in on people. Hayes was the guy who kind of brought people together. And so when we took a step back and realized we needed to try and make a positive contribution, we realized that we can answer that question, who's going to do what Hayes did now that he's gone, by saying we all can. We can all check in on one another. We can all look after one another. We can all be the hand on the shoulder. So that was kind of the insight and the genesis of what started us down this path. And it ultimately became, we articulated it as our program, which is the Shoulder Check. And that's because, it obviously comes from a place and that Hayes left, but it honors who he was as a young man when he was with us. And that was it. He was the guy in the locker room, in the classroom, or outside school, whether it was with parents or his peers or with their younger brothers and sisters, who people just kind of gravitated towards. And I think that's because he was an empathetic guy, right? It's not necessarily, he was a big guy, he was a goalie, he was 6'3", he was 200 pounds. He had a presence to him, so you noticed him when he walked in the room. But the reason you remembered him, I think, is not because of his physical presence, but rather just because he was the guy who noticed people, right? He was the guy who, empathy, yeah, that's the word that I always default to. And I think that's an unusual characteristic for somebody to be 16 years old and to be the one who's wondering if everybody else is okay. And obviously there's a lot to be read into on that, and that takes us down a whole nother path that can never really be answered. But that's the space we live in with this idea, right? It's just that notion that we can all be a little bit more aware of one another. So that's the genesis for the Shoulder Check, and that's come straight from who Hayes was when he was with us, made a big impression, and now hopefully that spirit and that intention can continue to make a bigger impression in the world.
So, full disclosure, I'm in like this hockey community in the area here, where Rob's from. And I think this, it made a huge impact in a lot of ways, because of, when you actually know people and, and we all know, be on the show for so long, and the hockey community is basically just like one community everywhere. You see it in all the places. And certainly, a lot of people experience loss. A lot of people experience trauma. And I guess I'd have to ask you, as a parent and, going through this, what gave you that clarity to say, we can do something about this, and we need to change. We can make a change. We can make a really difference. And you just, explain how do you how do you even get to that point and so quickly, and to to put this program together?
Yeah, I appreciate the question, and I'll try not to fill the whole time we have together answering it, because was a bit of a journey that was, yeah, it was both direct and also like it took a sec to get on track. But I think when this first happened, obviously the first few months were just disorienting, right? And there was no real sense of anything, time, place, whatever. Nothing made sense. But as we started to kind of settle a bit and understand what had happened, I think we were compelled, my wife and I, my daughter, we were compelled and felt like we had to make a contribution. We had to do something. And as it happened at that moment in time, my background, I'm marketing and advertising, used to run ad agencies, and I was working on a project at a time that happened to be working in the mental health space. So I had some people I could reach out to and just say, listen, we got to make a contribution. And actually, the first bit of feedback that I had come back to me was so jarring. This woman I was speaking to, she said, you need to leave this to the professionals. And I was like, wow, what does
Yeah.
that mean? Like, and I think it took me a second to find like what she meant by that statement, or actually use that statement. It made us kind of pivot, and it immediately sent us down the track that we're on now today. So while it was like a pretty piercing statement at the time, it was foundational in setting us in the right course of action. Because I reflected on that for a second. I was like, I'm not an interventionist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a practicing, mental health expert. I was a dad who worked in advertising, ran ad agencies, who had a young man who, had an experience in a world that took a turn that no one ever could have predicted. And so I was like, well, like I need to leave that part to the professionals, but like I am a professional I had a career in marketing and advertising. And if I took a step back on that and think about what we're trying to do in that world, it is about like behavior change. It is about messaging. It is about creating programs. There's a lot of great work that's been done in that space. And I immediately pivoted and started to think of like Susan G. Komen or Movember, right? Where these signature causes and these signature issues, and they've created programs that people can actively participate in, and they can find their own path to participate in it. So we were like, okay, so what if we weren't, like they've done for women's health initiatives and men's health initiatives, and what if our initiative was about kindness and empathy? And what if we went about building a brand that worked that way? And so we started that. Our professional network came to us like on day one, and they were like, we want to help. My wife's agency that she ran is called Droga 5. They've been our partner in this from day one. They've done free work for us for 3 years, pro bono work. And then at the same time, to your point, like the hockey world is amazing, right? The hockey world rallies, and everybody in our hockey life came around us immediately. And it was just like people knew that something was going to come of this, and everybody just said, when you're ready to do something, we want to be a part of it. So Gary Zegras and my son finished off at Mid Fairfield. He was about to head to Boston. He was going to play at Dexter, and prep school path was the way he was going, that kind of thing. But Gary came to me, and we had coffee one day, and he said, when you're ready to do something, I want to do something. And Ben Prentice, so Prentice Hockey Performance in Stanford, Ben and Ashley, Hayden's trained there. Unbeknownst to me, they had framed Hayden's jersey and hung it in the gym, next to all the other professional athletes that train there. She's right next to Adam Fox and Keandre Miller. When you walk in the gym, it's the first jersey you see. And Ben said he put it there so when people walk in, they say, oh, Thorsen, who's that? It tells the story of who Hayes was. And he said, we want to do something. And just like that, it all just kind of snapped into focus, where we had this idea for the shoulder check, putting a hand on a shoulder and making it something programmatic that people could participate in. Then all the guys through Gary's world and Trevor's world and all the guys that train at the gym, led by kind of Chris Kreider and Kevin Shattenkirk, they're like, yeah, we're in. And it just came together. Let's use this charity game to launch this idea, and off it went. And it just came together like that. It was pretty amazing, honestly amazing. And every single person connected to it is there because they want to be. It's an all volunteer thing that we do. It's all Hayden's friends, Hayden's hockey parents, and right down to the athletes. And everybody just kind of leaned in. And now we have this amazing idea.
And Rob, what does shoulder check look like on the ground for teams and organizations that might want to get involved? what does it look like? How do you get involved, and what can teams do to help each other?
Yeah, so that's what we've tried to do, and it keeps evolving, right? So each time we have the chance to go out and talk to somebody about it, or be present with the idea, or share it, like it's this iterative loop, right? Where other people have ideas, and we continue to build out the toolkit. But at its core, what we're trying to do is make it a part of team culture, or classroom culture, or even community culture, because that's where we're at now. We're presenting in all these different places. And the idea is to just take this idea of reach out, check in, make contact, right? That's the refrain. I promise to reach out, check in, and make contact. Then use that sentiment to make it part of what holds the team together, right? So we have like all kinds of little artifacts, we call them now. So we have like I check in because, you know how people hold up their placards, say stand up to cancer. So ours say I check in because. So we give those to teams and they can fill them in and hang them in the locker rooms. And we have jersey patches and helmet stickers and hockey tape so that you can, we say, rep the blue, right? To show that you believe in these values, but ultimately to make it part of your team culture. And what I found happens most is we have a little script and the team will use it. And before they start their game, you know, they'll share this idea with an opponent, ideally even a rival. Or they'll skate out to center ice, circle up at center ice between the two teams, put hands on each other's shoulders, and repeat that refrain. I promise to reach out, check in, and make contact. And again, it's just like little tools and devices, little things you can do to just bring awareness to each other.
You know, I want to ask you this too, Rob. It's kind of a two-part question here. Mental health, mental fitness is something we bring up a lot on this show. And in the nature we're talking about it, you know, it has been stigmatized for so many years. You know, I do feel like we are making headway to break through that, but we're not where we need to be yet, right? So those are some great actions that you spoke about. When we use the word success for this foundation, right? What is success for you? What is success for the group? You know, short term, long term. What does that look like for our audience who maybe have never heard of this before?
Yeah, I think so. Our program, so it is awareness and behavior change, right? And it started small, but I think we have the opportunity to contribute in a meaningful way to kind of break down these stigmas that exist around this. And you're
Right.
exactly right. Like that's what it is. And I think that's the nature of change, right? Like slowly and then all at once, right? We all keep doing the small things until more and more people are doing the small things and that then becomes the norm, right? That's
Right.
like how change happens. And it's like slowly and then all at once. And in that way, I could think about it logically, right? Like I always use a parallel. I had a family member when I was young, when I was like 12 years old, and he was 10, and then he had cancer. And you know, very fortunate, obviously, massively supportive family came around him. But I still think about that in retrospect. It was the kind of thing that was a little bit quiet, right? Then now look where we're at with that, where we celebrate people, we stand up to cancer, we honor their battle, and we honor them in, you know, in ringing the bell, and then sometimes, unfortunately, in not, right? And I think the same thing's happening now as it relates to mental health and wellness. We're just starting to crack that thing open. And the thing that we noticed and what we're really keen to do is make sure we're being additive to the conversation, right? Because there are a lot of great programs that are working at the intervention level, right? There's a lot of great support. There needs to be more. If there's not enough, there needs to be more. And then there's a lot of work that's being done at the general awareness level. Like I always think of, you see the billboards that say it's okay to not be okay and you are not alone. But what occurred to us was like if I'm driving down the road in my car and I see a billboard that says you are not alone, I'm like, but I am alone.
Yeah.
And it still puts the onus on me
Mhm.
to be vulnerable, to allow myself the vulnerability. So our thought was just like, let's just get everybody else involved, right? So you are not alone. And then our part of the sentence is because I'm right here beside you.
Right. Right.
Like if I needed an ultimate elevator pitch for what we're trying to do, it's we don't always know who might need a hand, but we all have a hand to give. And that's what we're trying to do is get everybody involved to help create space to allow people the vulnerability they need to ask for help when they need it. So I think, you know, that's, I realize that's not like, you know, a hard metric. We want to reach, you know, 275,000 people, right? Like, which we already have, you know, we're reaching like so many people now. And I think we just want to continue to bring this message forward to contribute to this positive evolution and understanding around mental health and wellness.
And I have to add real quick, Rob, brilliant answer is that with the nature of the topic today, it's so important that there may not be signs that you need to do this, right? Just asking someone or being with someone has massive power.
Yeah.
You may not realize someone is going through something. You may not see something that goes, oh, wow, they need help today. That's why it's important that this becomes a normal thing of just like you literally hand on the shoulder. How are you doing? Like the understanding that I love how you said that I'm with you, right? I say sometimes I'll stand with you. I'll walk with you. It has a lot of power in this situation. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's it. No, that's a nod of agreement, man. Like I was thinking about it. If you think about, try and boil it down, because I think what helps where you find success is by simple ideas that are universally understood, right? Like, and what's more powerful than like a hand on a shoulder? Like across cultures, there's 8 billion people in the world. I would say virtually every single one of them would intuitively understand what a hand on a shoulder means.
Right.
In lots of different ways too, right? Like it could be celebratory, like we just won. It could be encouraging, like let's go, we got this. And it could be conciliatory, like it's okay, man. Like it can be all those things, and it's such a simple gesture.
And how much power do you think there's for those listening, not really sure whether or not they should get involved? How much power is there in peer-to-peer communication?
Well, that's it, and that's where it's at. And I apologize, I got a little bit of a cold here. When we started, we looked at one sec. Sorry, not my best moment.
No apologies necessary.
Winter weather.
Yes.
When we looked at it, we started, and if we boil it down, right? So if 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 people, young men or women, are going to need mental health support in some way over the coming year, 3/4 of them say they don't have someone to go to when they're in need.
Yeah.
But the flip side of that coin is nearly every single one of them says the first person they'd accept help from is a friend. Like that's where that's where it's at, right? That's 100% where it's at, peer to peer.
I want to ask this question too. So we're going to talk about coaches and parents. I'm actually going to go right to parents. We talk a lot on this show about the car ride home after the game. We talk a lot about how parents interact with their kids after a good game, a bad game, with the solution of Rob, the car ride's not for coaching. But we also speak about how, especially in the younger half of youth hockey, that it's so important that you establish for your kids that you are safe with us at home, in the car. When I see parents, and I see it, really analyzing the game after the game, or really having a problem with, how their kid played that game, and it becomes a classroom scenario over a parenting scenario. I wonder your thoughts on how parents can make the home a safe environment, how parents can make the car ride home a safe environment, and how they should approach that.
Yeah, I think that's just it. It's just empathy, right? It's empathy, and I know, and I can relate to that too, right? Just as a parent going through that, and even my son and I finding our own space and path, and just like you have kind of the 24-hour rule, where before anybody can reach out to a coach, like we instituted the 24-hour rule ourselves for games and practices, and said we're not going to talk about anything until a day later. And just finding our own path, but just really empathy for that person in the car and understanding, like kind of, I don't mean to ask a meta question, but it's like, what are we doing here, right? We're trying to encourage a kid along the lines of their passion, and understanding that they're having highs and lows,
right?
And understanding that they're going through their own things that they're not gonna articulate. They don't even have the words to articulate it when they're young, right? Like,
right. Yeah. But it's funny. We reference this a lot. One of our best episodes is what to say to your kids before a game. And I always like to reiterate, it's, I love you no matter what happens. I love watching you play. And then some form of work hard, have fun, go learn something.
Yeah.
But, there's also the things you should or should not say after a game or when you're away from hockey. And I think, for the parents listening, it's so important to tell your kids, I love you no matter what has happened, right? I want you here, right? I think the world of you. There's no scenario where I don't want you here. Or also things, parents just asking your kids, talk about shoulder check, right? Like, hey, are you okay? And they may not answer you, But if you say, hey, you okay? I'm always here for you if you need.
Yeah.
Like them hearing that will resonate probably more than they will let on. Right. And I always encourage parents to do that. Now, I see parents ripping their kids about what's going on in the game. Like, you're doing it from a place of love. I actually really believe that. Like, you care, right? But it's coming, like you said it, Rob. It's like there's no empathy in that statement, right? It's it's not a conducive environment. They're not going to want to talk to you. They're already not going to want to talk to you as teenagers, right? It's like why compound that? Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah. No, well, we had an experience pretty early that struck me just as a person observing what was going on. You go to we used to go to these different clinics and stuff like that. At some point in time, I noticed like things just turned like more serious than they needed to be at a certain point. And I couldn't put my finger on exactly where or when, but everything got really, really serious. And it was, did you get invited to this? And are you going to that? That whole thing.
Right.
And so, Hayden's a good player. So he got him, he went to those kinds of things. And we were at one and it was put on by a college coach. And these kids were like, maybe 11 or 12 at the time. So we were already four years into things. And the coach had said, no matter what you think, this was the speech. Like, it was like, one of those things where you go, you talk for 45 minutes, you do your skills, blah, 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 blah. And his speech was all about no matter what, someone is always watching. Like, that was the speech. And these dudes were like 11 or 12 years old. And you could just see like the body language and the look on their faces. Like, you know what I mean? It was just like putting this weight on them. And I remember, like, even me, I was thinking like, man, if I was trying to motivate a room full of 11-year-olds, I'm not sure, like, I get it. Okay. This guy's running a D1 program and like, that's what he's looking for there. But like, the 11-year-old mind isn't the 18 or 20 or 22-year-old mind, which is the guys that he's dealing with. Right. And that really, it just really struck me. And I know it struck my son too, because he would tell me stories all the time that we would go to some of these things and he would be like, man, I walk in the locker room and everybody's so tense and so nervous and so high strung. He was like, he did. And this, by the time, it was around that same age, 12, 13, 14. He was like, did I hate it? He says, so he was actively in the locker room, like trying to change through him being himself and what he felt he needed in that room to like lighten the mood, to bring out some levity. He was like, I remember one specific, his name is Dan. And Hayden, my son Hayden, told me a story about Dan. He was like, I could see it on him. He was like, so I did everything I could just to make him smile. Like, and that was like Hayden's approach to the game. And he once told me, he was like, I don't do well when I'm not having fun. And we would get there and there'd be parents around and be like, this is the biggest game we've ever played. We really, this, that, the other thing. I'm like, man, like, no. And I could see it. And I knew that was like, it took my son, he felt the weight of that. And it took the joy out of things. And I never understood why it was like, it just went like to 11 in a way that it didn't need to. So I think a lot of the time my son spent just kind of pushing back on that, he himself, and I was kind of taking my lead from him a bit. Where I was like, okay, like if he's there to have fun, like he wanted to have fun, and yeah, they were succeeding. They were really good players. They had really good. They did the, go to nationals and all that kind of stuff. But he did it because he enjoyed it, and I think that's the dynamic that he personally fought with it a lot, was trying to keep it fun.
I mean, obviously through this experience and through the things you're doing, with shoulder check and I'm assuming that you're now being contacted or surrounded by people like that had the same experiences or had tragedy in their life like this. Is there anything that you would say, over this time period now that you could give to parents, like little things that you should be looking for, or not just asking, but just like just recognizing that this tournament this weekend is not the most important thing in the world. And us as coaches, we think everything's the most important thing in the world. And I think, and I use that term all the time, and I'll have to rethink that, obviously, about, you're always being watched. And I think coaches say it in a way where don't be disrespectful, don't treat your parents the wrong way. Make sure you treat the garbage man, the same way as the CEO. I think that's how people think they're saying it.
Yeah.
right? But the pressure of saying every minute you do something, you're being judged is such a a detrimental use of that motivation that I think, I mean, I know I just based off of this, I'm going to rethink, just using that terminology. But can you just give a little bit of, again, the people you're now associated with and surrounded with? I'm sure people reach out to you all the time now because this is I think, I mean, we haven't even gotten to the people that are supporting this, right? The pro athletes and the people around the game and the amount, and I'd love to hear that because obviously it's a very passionate thing for them. But could you just talk a little bit about, from your perspective, what could you tell a parent that you'd say, well, you should look out for this and recognize this.
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess a couple of things on that front. And to your point, like I agree the intent of what's being communicated there. I think the articulation that resonates with me is on that character building side, which is, that notion of like you are who you are when no one's watching, right? It's what you do when no one's watching that defines who you are as a person. And I think that's the same kind of sentiment, but just said from the opposite side of you know what I mean? The opposite side of that same coin, right? Like, because and I do know, and I've heard and I've talked to, a lot of different coaches and college guys and all that kind of stuff, and they're looking at what they mean is like the whole person. But I think in a lot of what in that specific instance I referenced it came out as like every moment you're on the ice, every second of you as a hockey player is like detrimental to your fate if you don't get it right. And I think that's the way that was what struck me there. But I think to your point, like that notion of like character, right? It's who you are as a person matters well beyond any specific sporting context, right? Like it's who you are in the world. And that is important, and sports do that. Like that's a really great thing about sports. And that's why we tried to add this component to it and make this a part of what the sporting endeavor is like team building and being there for one another. And that's a life skill. And as it relates to in the larger scheme of things, like what to look for, um, I think the thing I can only speak from my own personal experience, right? Like that's the part that I know. And one observation I had pretty quickly was, I mean, look, if 50,000 people a year make this final decision, they've walked 50,000 different paths to get there, right? And there are archetypes and commonalities and things to look for, but there are also sometimes, and this is really specific to our instance, when people aren't sharing. Like if you made a list of 1,000 kids, Hayden would have been 1,001 on that list. Like it's so incomprehensible what happened. Um, and there, it sounds incredible to say. Like I even, I'll rewalk the path every day to think what, where, how, why, and sometimes there aren't answers. And I think then the question then becomes like, okay, you know, are we checking in enough? Are we sure? Are we listening? Are we there for the answer? Hey, you good? No, 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 really, man. You good? And being there for the answer. I think that's the best I can offer as it relates to that question because, that was our experience to be so unaware of something and to have someone in the world who everyone, no one, there was nothing, you know what I mean? There was nothing that ever would have known, you knew you had someone who was feeling, who was empathetic themselves. That's why you see those expressions, and this made me mad in the beginning, but I recognize it too. It said check on your happy friends, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I was like, man, where are we at? We're like, we can't even trust that someone's happy. But I think that is the case, right? We live in the world now in a way where everything's kind of set to 11, right? Like even, going through high school and your grades and your college and your this and your that, right? Like everything seems to be set to 11. There's so much pressure that it's hard to let the guard down. So again, like that's kind of my piece and our contribution to this. Like let's just create space where people can let their guard down. Anything you push in is coming out some way or another, right? No matter what it is, it's coming out some way, probably with twice the force that you forcing it down with. And it comes out in lots of different ways. It gets expressed in different ways, right? Like obviously for us in this kind of ultimate pathway, but you have people who will act out. You have people who have, behavioral cues. You have people who start to push the envelope or maybe find paths towards drugs and alcohol, like, for us, they refer to these things as paths of despair, right? Like push things in, they're going to come out some way. But ultimately, I think, being open, being attuned, and being honest about things, and just being there for someone, I think can make a huge difference.
Rob,
Yeah.
thank you so much for the work you've done. We are deeply so sorry for the loss of your son, Hayden. What a wonderful young man. We do want to talk more about the impact you are making. Teams and communities are discovering you, and your shoulder check is growing, probably in ways you never even imagined. So tell us about that, how communities are bringing shoulder check to life and hockey teams are discovering you and the difference it's making.
Yeah, I'll say, like, it is the figurative and literal hand on our shoulder, obviously, right? Like, to see this idea being embraced and knowing now directly, like you say, we've been doing this for a little bit. Like, I have the stories, the emails, or even the phone calls that come now where people will share, like, hey, we had a teammate who we were worried about and we reached out, and like, that people have, it's made a life saving difference in some places. And I think that's, again, the most extreme example, right? But I think it also makes a huge difference at the everyday level in just creating a space that makes people joyful. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do at this, right? So, like, now we have it, I say it all the time, from Stanford to Seattle. And now we're in Calgary now, right? So we've got, like, WHL team in Calgary's got a shoulder check night coming up. The Junior Kraken are doing it in Seattle.
Nice.
Sun Valley Youth Hockey Association is got the whole program involved. And interesting things come of that too, right? Where a senior, they did it for senior night in Sun Valley, and this young man wanted to write a paper for his high school graduation thesis about mental health and wellness, and he reached out to me and wanted to do an interview for his paper about it, right? This is like kind of the interesting small things that are happening. Or, I'll be in Erie, the Erie Otters, the OHL. We're having a shoulder check night on a Wednesday night. Then we're headed down to DC, where the Capitals will be having a shoulder check night. But we do all of that, right? Again, so those are big platforms where thousands of people can see the message, so that people can be inspired to want to bring it to their teams. And I'll go to those events and stand behind a table and just meet people, and talk about how they can bring the program to their teams. And again, what that is just kind of making the commitment to be there for one another. And then people can interpret that however they want for their teams. So now, yeah, we've got youth programs from mites, all the way up to the U18s. We've got the juniors, we've got colleges, we've got pro teams doing it. And then it's gone well beyond hockey as well, to other sports, but then just to classrooms, right? We present to high schools all the time, 1,200 kids at a time, and we have them fill out these I check in cards. And it's really inspiring. We've got corporate sponsorships, things like, we're working with a hospital system because they recognize, like, who's checking in on doctors and nurses who are frontline employees. We're partnered up with a military charity called TK Foundation, who, they also recognize, right, the need to be there for one another, because who's under more stress and caring more than the people who are on the front lines in the armed services. And seeing the idea resonate with different people in such different places, but again, comes back to that one simple universal thought of, like, you're not alone because I'm right here beside you. Like, you don't know who needs a hand, but I have a hand to give. And seeing that resonate in so many different ways and places is incredible. Like, I'm really blown away by some of the things and some of the calls or opportunities that we have. But we keep always bringing it back to the way it was meant to work by design from the get-go, which is, it is a grassroots program.
Right.
And we're super fortunate to have all these kind of elite NHLers and the PWHLers that have been participating in this with us from the get-go. Like, these folks are role models, and kids see it. They use the words. You might see somebody who, when somebody has a broken arm, you can see that, but you can't see when they're struggling with something inside. And just to hear those guys say it is game changing, and that's all to unlock this kind of grassroots participation. That's why we do all this stuff.
That is
Yeah.
amazing. That is
I don't think I
amazing.
answered your question. Did I answer a question?
Yeah. No,
You
well,
did.
it's funny because
Phenomenal. Wow. Yeah. I think I read somewhere that you got the rights to Lean on Me. You
Yeah,
gotta
so that
share,
was yeah,
share that
so
story and how you used it in that night
yeah.
for that very special night. That's so cool.
Yeah, that was amazing. So every year, so we wrote our mission statement, right? So we were incorporated as the HT40 Foundation because we had to get our 501(c)(3), and then we did the work that got us to the idea of the shoulder check. And we wrote a mission statement and said that we want to inspire and enable young men and women to check in and be there for one another. So inspire and enable are like the two key words for us. So every year we try and like add new tools to the toolkit. So the first year was the shoulder check. Obviously, that was the platform. And then the second year, we did we made an emoji. We called it the check-in emoji. We were trying to get it on. It's called the Unicode database. Like every emoji you get gets served from the same place, whether it's on your text or Instagram or whatever. It all comes from the same place, and you have to get approved. So we pitched them the check-in emoji. Um, and with that, we got to ring the opening bell at the NASDAQ Stock Exchange, and we had all the signage all around Times Square. It was amazing. It was all donated. The Unicode database people, in all their wisdom, chose a chewed up apple core as a more important emoji than our check-in emoji. So that one didn't make the cut, but we got to talk about it for like 3 months and bring awareness to the cause. And then last year, our idea. So we had this idea. Do you want me to tell a story about the idea?
Yes, 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 yes.
So when we first started, my friend Chris, who's our partner, one of the creative guys at the agency, came and he was like, "Dude, we should get people to sing 'Lean on Me,' and let's
Wow.
see if we could get, we could get some professional athletes to sing it, this, that, the other thing." And I was like, "It's a great idea, man, but like we were just starting, we didn't have any connects at the time, so it just wasn't the right time for the idea." So then he called me back probably a year ago this time, and he was like, "Dude, I think we need to revisit this idea." I said, "I think we could do it." So they reached out to. So the idea was that we would ask the NHL guys to just come in and sing the song, to sing "Lean on Me," which was like, will they do it? I don't know. But even if they don't do it, even if they just say the words, that would be cool. So the agency folks reached out to Bill Withers' estate, explained the idea, and they said, "Would you allow us the use of this song?" And they were like, "Yeah, absolutely, please do." Which is incredible, right? Like they gave us the rights to use the song. And then the day of our showcase, which is, we have our shoulder check showcase. That's our big event. I'll talk more about that in a minute. But anyway, that's where all the guys come out, play a charity game. It's like everybody comes out. We have 2,500 people every year. They're at Prentice earlier in the day, and we were like, well, we were very fortunate. We had this kind of production company, commercial production company from LA come out, and like, we'll help you make this. And we went there and we told the guys, like, would you mind coming in and singing a couple bars to the song? And everybody looked at us like, what do you want us to do? And I had the good fortune. I was with Marty St. Louis the day before, and I was telling him about the idea, and he's been a great supporter. He's in the area, and he's been with us from day one. And I was telling him about the idea, and I was like, if you want, like, you swing by, dude, see if you want to participate. And he was like, you're gonna. He was like, yeah, good luck with that. And sure enough, like he came the next day, and like he
Wow.
did a part. You could see him in it. I'll send you the video if you haven't seen it. It's
Yes.
on our site.
Love that.
And everybody did it. So probably about 15 guys came. Like Jonathan Quick's in there, Spencer Knight, Adam Fox, Matt Rempe, Kreider,
Wow.
Shattenkirk, Shane Gostisbehere, Brett Pesci, everybody, Brett Berard, and then my son's friends are the extras in it, and they're all singing. And we just did it that day. We just took a shot, did it, and then we have John Brancy, who's the New York Rangers anthem singer.
Wow.
So he sings the anthem for us at our event. And I said to him, I was like, dude, would you go out there at our showcase and sing "Lean on Me"? He's like, yeah, I'll do that. So he went out there and he sang it. And we had our camera guys on the ice, and spontaneously people in the crowd turned their camera lights on their phone and started singing along. And it's kind of the way this whole thing has been going since we started it. It was like, is this going to work? Like, I don't know. It's a good idea. Let's do that. Let's see what happens. And it worked amazingly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then we have this like 90-second film, and I had no idea the impact and the power. It brings people to tears. It's incredible.
Oh,
And I think what
love it.
works about it, I think what works about it is the guys, everybody that's in it is just trepidatious enough that they're demonstrating the very vulnerability that we're advocating for in the world. Like, it's an amazing the way this thing worked and it came out. And again, like, so much credit to all of them who have just been part of this with us from day one. And we're like, yeah, let's do it. And yeah, it was incredible. We had to go over there and we showed it to them when it was done, and you could see everybody was kind of like, wait, what are we doing with this? And we're like, oh, we can. We're gonna get it on the Super Bowl if we can. And they're like,
Oh,
what?
fantastic. It's
But just
amazing.
yeah, it was incredible. It was an incredible experience, and just another case in point of like how hockey world rallies, right? Like, this is, it's our collective idea. The shoulder check is our collective idea. Like, is it's much theirs as ours as the kids who participate when they bring it to their local rinks.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that.
That was good.
The reach is amazing. You know, one of the things about organizations like this, Rob, is that, you know, I always joke, one of my favorite shows growing up was Quantum Leap. And
me too.
you know, yeah, there you go. And you know, again, for the audience that doesn't know, very short, is the main character leaps into different people's lives and helps different people. And one of my favorite parts of the last episode is the main character is asked, like, do you think you've helped a lot of people? He says, not that many. I've only leaped so many times. And the awareness of the people you have helped other people, and they've helped other people, and they've helped other people. The echoes of what you have done have helped hundreds of thousands and millions of people. And Rob, you've done that. I mean, and everyone involved has done that, right? And I think that with initiatives like this, whatever you want to call it, that's why it's so important to have it a community-based programs like this, because it reverberates loudly, not just in your area, but everywhere. I mean, like our podcast audience is hearing about it now, right? That's why things like this are so important. I also want to make a note too. You talked earlier about vulnerability with the athletes and the coaches, and how that, you know, with situations like this, it is not it's not always so obvious. You know, I think Robin Williams, you know, what's apropos for this episode, said so famously, and obviously I'm paraphrasing here, but everyone is going through something you know nothing about. Be kind.
Yeah.
And you said it earlier, and I wanted to reiterate this, that, you know, sometimes the happiest people on the outside may not be feeling that way on the inside. There may not be a huge awareness of someone's dealing with something. I can't stress that enough, especially to the coaches listening, because I think a lot of us grew up in a time where we were told to push our emotions down, do not show your feelings. And I will say it, that was a mistake, right? Like, we have learned that is not the way to be doing this anymore. And I think it's so important when we deal with this new generation of youth athletes and just youth in general. They're growing up in a very different environment where emotions and feelings are actually important, a power in a lot of ways. So I think, and I'd love to have a quick discussion for coaches out there that might be listening that go, look, okay, you know, guys, I believe what you're saying. I have no idea how to implement this into my U10 team, right? So can we talk for a few minutes to the coaches listening about actions they can take at the start of the season, during the season, at any age really, to implement shoulder check philosophy? And my guess is, Rob, it's not that intricate. It's not that crazy. No. It's not like it's a daily thing at every practice. It's little things.
No, sir. Right? No, and by design, and that was kind of why we built our kind of annual way of working, or our annual calendar around that, right? So our shoulder check showcase, which is our big event of the year, happens the last week of July. It'll be at Sacred Heart University, which is in Fairfield, Connecticut this year. And we use that as a launch pad, and we do that because, you know, fall teams and school starts and all that happens right after that. So the idea was, like, you can come together and you could start and you can make the shoulder check a part of your team or your school or your culture right from the get-go. And we have, like I said, we have like team kits that we send that have, like, it's got a script in it that you can read, simple script that just says, look, checking in on one another is important. Like, it's as simple as that, just to make the point from the start. And we're going to make that a part of our team culture. You know, some teams have like a make contact Monday thing where there's a text thread. There's always a team text thread. So say something nice to somebody on Monday. You know what I mean? Like, it's the littlest things like that. But yeah, that we try to make it so that you could start, each team can come together then it could just be some part of the code of conduct, right? It could be like formal like that, or it could be like, hey, we're going to wear these helmet stickers all year, or after every practice, we're going to get around the net and our chant's going to be make contact, right? So just using the language and like getting used to it and making that language part of the team culture is kind of super simple way to do it.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that's really important, I've had this a few times too, right? Like where people think that people maybe don't understand the program enough, or they think like, oh, this is a suicide prevention program. I've had people say, no, we don't need that. We don't need to be talking about that. Like that's off-putting, right? That's a challenging topic. Of course, it's a challenging topic. It's a scary topic. It's all those things. And there's a definite ancient belief that says by like, if we talk about these things, we're going to will them into existence, right? Like there's that old school line of thinking, which has been disproven, radically disproven. But obviously also it needs to be handled correctly. But that's why our idea is meant to operate like way up higher, right? It's like way pre-intervention. It's barely, even in the language that we use, you wouldn't even necessarily say, oh, that's a mental health program. It's just an empathy program, right? It's a kindness program. And the impact that that has is like game changing. And all those other things that happen underneath that, like this just opens up the aperture on it. And that's why we tried to make it like that, right? So that it is simple. And not only that, but like, especially as kids get older, and they see themselves as role models,
Right.
well, then the role they're playing now is like, hey, I'm a champion for kindness. Like I believe in this. I'm sharing this with you, and certainly that becomes a thing that happens when the kids get older. Like, yeah, no, we're doing a shoulder check game because we want to role model this behavior, right? But back to your point, to coaches, like it is just a simple thing, right? Like we're going to work hard, we're going to do our best, and then to say, and we're going to look after one another.
Right.
That's it. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, Rob, I gotta add in here too. A lot of the audience knows about my team building work. That's the realm I work in. If you think, those of you listening, that this does not impact your team's ability to play hockey better, you're crazy. Okay, it absolutely makes an impact on their game as well, right? Not that that's the main reason you would do it. All right, but it's funny when we talk about. You mentioned the word team building, Rob. Like. When you tell people that on the surface, they go, okay, happy clapping and yoga and, all this, the kumbaya. I said, it's actually quite the opposite, right? Like a lot of the things I do are very uncomfortable for these athletes. I'm putting them into, as you said, positions where it's not fun. I'm uncovering inconsistencies as in them as a group and as individuals with the overarching message of we're in this together, right? None of us are perfect. All right. And it's going to be hard, but you got to take care of each other. Teams that have that down, by and large, succeed over teams that don't. Right. And I'm just going to say it that as coaches, find the shoulder check resources. First off, bring them into your I was going to say clubhouse, bring them into your locker room, because not only they have a positive effect on these kids' lives, it'll have a positive effect on your team. And I have to say this too. I'm going to be on a soapbox for half a second here. If the word empathy makes you roll your eyes, which I don't think is this audience, to be fair, I mean, you're behind here, right? Like this is an important part of human culture and always has been, to be fair, right? We haven't always called it empathy. And then the other, this is more of a warning, if I may. If anyone's listening, this is hard, parents. If anyone's listening thinking this will never happen to me, this will never happen to my kid, that's a dangerous place to be. All right. I don't think that way about my situation, my home. Don't we talk about this like, oh, my kid's the one who's going to make it, right? It's like the opposite of that. Don't be the parent thinking this could never happen in my home. It's just not the right wavelength to be on. I'm not saying it's going to happen or anything like that, but the lack of awareness in that statement, it should scare you a little bit at home if you've been thinking that, right? Now, again, I'm saying that. I don't know if the three of you agree with me on that, but don't get stuck in that thinking, because that type of thinking is going to lead you to not having conversations. It's going to lead you to not checking on your young ones, and it's going to lead you down a place where a little bit of ignorance, in my opinion. All right? And that's a hard thing to say. All right, I'm not trying to sound like the boss here. I think that if we don't talk about that, what are we talking about?
Right.
Yeah, man.
No, go ahead, Rob.
No, not my place.
I
You go.
no, I was just gonna say, I mean, in my own experience, like I had actually texted Rob a couple of weeks ago. I walk into a rink and it just, we were just talking about this, right? And all of a sudden I see the shoulder check signs up there, checking in on this person, the colors, the not only the team atmosphere of this, like the team went out and did this as a project for
Right.
them, right? No matter whether there's certain players on the team that believes it or not, right, or buys into it or not, was really more relevant to Rob's kind of description of what Prentice did by having his son's jersey up. It initiated a conversation of what is that and what are they doing, and all of a sudden now you go into any high school game, youth hockey, high school games especially, right? And what Rob's talking about is professional teams, but there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of families there, and the reach out for really doing nothing but this one event in your own little world of your 20 game season. And one of those games you do a shoulder check game or some type of awareness. I think for anybody that's listening to this episode would be like, well, that's really without effort. To your point, you're now spreading the word and having a conversation. And if it's hitting one person and one family and one kid, then we've accomplished a great deal. And I think it doesn't take a lot of effort. I mean, I know if you go to Rob's website and you just order like a packet of what you want to do or how you want to be involved, or whether it's wearing wristbands or dashboard signs or whatever it is, it's another level of awareness, and it helps with your team building, and it helps with communicating to your kids. Like, so it's all these great benefits of it. And I think me personally seeing it firsthand, because you walk in a rink and you're not expecting it, it instantly resonates and connects.
And I've been happy to say I have seen it on the college level with my daughter's college hockey teams. I have not seen it on the local level. I have not seen it with youth hockey teams, unfortunately. And I think, Lee, it could be some denial on the part of parents. Oh, this could never happen here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we need to keep pushing, keep raising that awareness, not only just inspiring, but enabling kids to be able to have those tools in their toolbox, and giving parents permission to think about this could possibly, yes, it could be right in your own home and you don't even know about it. So
It's
yeah,
the word I should have used, Christy. It's just awareness. It's
Right.
just awareness of it, right? Again, there's no perfect parents
right,
out there, okay, including
Yeah.
myself, right? So
yeah,
it's just one of those things of be aware of it. You can
Right.
turn this into a massive positive.
I
My
agree.
my guess, Rob, is the kids actually probably run to it. Like they're probably all about it, right?
I
Well,
agree.
that's totally, and that's the way we've tried to build it so that I would say it's 2/3 of the people that reach out are the kids themselves, which is
Wow.
what we want by design.
Wow. That's
Yeah, I would not
amazing.
have guessed that, Rob. That's a great
Yeah.
stat.
It
Yeah,
is.
100%. I have, excuse me, I have, yeah, and it's an interesting dynamic. Like we're sending out, our team kits, like we said, to, yeah, definitely 2/3 of the folks that reach out are the players themselves
Fantastic.
saying, I want to bring this to my team. And that's how, like, again, like we're going all the way back, right? We talked peer to peer before, right? Like that's it. Like I know it's working because I see the inbound, and then the kids text me back, hey, we did, it was like Taft had it gun school this past weekend, or even Darien High School did. There were a few games in our general area that I'm aware of. They all text me back and say it was amazing. People had such a good time. The kids bring themselves to it. They turn it into fundraisers if they want to for us. There's no ask from our side. We don't ask for anything in return. Like we're not raising money, we're raising awareness. And I do believe, we're still in the naive part of this where a good idea will find the support that it needs, like to grow it. Obviously, we're switching gears and doing that kind of stuff. But yeah, one young man, he wanted to do something. He made like a shooter tutor that was shoulder check branded, and he sold opportunities for little kids to go out, shoot pucks, and win a jersey.
That's
Like
cool.
they're finding
Very
their own ways to do it. Yeah, and I think that's amazing. Or there was a bake sale at one. Like I know these things happen because all of a sudden some Venmo comes in and they're $3 at a time, which is incredible. Like kids doing bake sales, but that's all the kids themselves doing it. And sometimes they'll need a coach to sponsor or support them. or a parent to help them, make the case. But I think I have seen one instance where someone said no when a kid said we want to do this and the team said no.
Wow.
Yeah. And because it was only one, like it stands out
Right.
so much more. If it was, and again, this is the other reason we do it with the kids. Like it's the kids bringing it to their schools. I'm not out pitching it to high school administrators. It's the kids bringing it to their schools. And just like the teams support their athletes, right? The schools support their students.
Right.
Like this is an idea that these young men and women care about. And they're the ones who are carrying it forward, and that's how all these doors are opening.
Well, and the data supports it too, Rob, because they've done it. Obviously, audience, you can look this up on your own. Please don't ever take my word for it. But the research shows the number one concern of the youth, especially in youth athletics, it's not making it. It's not, it's mental fitness, mental health, and they are openly saying that. And we always talk about meeting kids where they're at. Right. This is a win-win for your team, for your organization, for humanity, if you want to go really big with it, which we should. Right. And it's important to this generation of kids. Right. So I think that the fact that you just said 2/3 are kids, it supports that. Right. This is something that's positive for the culture. Rob, you said earlier, about, and we always say this, about hockey's supposed to be fun. And I'll go back to the people who make fun of us, happy clappers. Right. There's already enough adversity in the game.
Right.
They don't need more adversity.
Right.
And again, part of this is me as a coach talking, part of the fun, and I mean this isn't a stretch, is them learning to overcome the adversity, right? When they can look back on, wow, we had this challenge that we overcame. We all know that feeling, right? Like that's a form of fun, if you want to call it that. So, this can be fun. This can be part of that growth with a very serious topic, but you want to destigmatize it, talk about it. I always say that too. We have to have these conversations if you want to destigmatize things.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a circular logic to it where we're trying to create space to allow people to feel more vulnerable by creating space for them to be vulnerable, right? Like it is like this circular dialogue. You just have to, the wheel's going to spin one way or another.
Right.
Why not spin it in a positive way? I draw this distinction sometimes in my presentations, the difference between reflection and regret, right? Like, and that's like a massive team thing, right? Like when you don't do something that you otherwise know you could have done or should have done, that's the path to regret.
Right.
And regret is heavy, and you don't always get to put regret down. But the path to reflection is just like you were saying, is by being intentional and by being aware and knowing that things might not always work out the way you want them to, but because you put your best self into it, you can learn from it. And that's reflection. And that's such a better, more positive place to be. That's the life skill, right? And that's
I always love to say this too, because I talked earlier in the episode about that car ride home, right? I never said it would be easy not to talk about the game in the car ride home as a parent or as a coach, right? I like the first thing I want to do is talk about the game, but it's hard for me, but I do it, right? Like, no, Lee, you're not going to bring this up unless they do. That's tough, right? No one said this would be the easiest path, right? And like what you're talking about with the adversity, a big message here for parents. Like, it's hard to allow your kids to fail. Rob, you talked earlier about when did this turn to 11? When did this get so serious? Well, I think there was a turn in culture. I'm not putting this only on parents here, but I don't want my kid to fail. I don't want my kid to fail. Well, don't play hockey because the whole game is based on capitalizing on someone else's failure, right? Like that's also the greatest gift of this game.
Yeah.
Right. And I think together we have to be okay with letting your kids experience all of it, the ups, the downs, the lefts, the rights, the challenges. Right. And again, I'm not trying to get too grandiose here. Like this is a big part of that, what we're talking about today, the mental side, right? We have to allow the kids to feel their emotions, to express their emotions, and most importantly, to know that you are not alone in experiencing these things, right? We all feel these things, right? And I just love the message of just, hey, I'm here with you. You're not alone, and I'm walking with you. I think that was a great addition to that statement, right? Sorry, I am going like 5 minutes.
No, you're good.
Rob, I'll just say this, because we're getting to get kind of time here. To you directly, sir, anyone who takes this type of pain and allows it to fuel purpose is not just an inspiration to all of us, but I mean, it's amazing. I mean, what you have done, what you have created, and the community that you've created together. I know you'll give all credit to them too, but it takes a tremendous amount of courage to turn pain into purpose like this, or to fuel it. So thank you for the work you're doing as well.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Mike, Christy, do you have anything else before we close this out?
Please tell us how do teams get involved? How do we find you?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, definitely. I get to give the plug. I appreciate that. Yeah, no.
Yes.
So we're on. So it's shouldercheck.org is our site, and it's the Shoulder Check. That's the handle that's under me there on Instagram. The Instagram page shows the program in action. You'll see what other people are doing with it, with their teams, and all the different places. And then on the site itself, it has resources. We have, like I said, the scripts are there, the team kits are there, all the different ways. There's a section that says get involved, talks about how you can do it with your team, with your school, or with your community. And there's different actions you can take, downloadables, all that kind of good stuff. And then also there's a contact button there. The emails come to me and one other member of our full-time team. And we get back to everybody directly. And a lot of times it just starts with an open-ended question. If it's outside, say a team like, hey, I have an idea I wanted to do. How could I bring it to my whatever music festival? And then we would do a phone call and say, let's talk about it. And then we find a path for it. So that's kind of my full-time job, is supporting this idea and helping it come to life in whatever way works best for the people that want to use it. But there's a lot of turnkey stuff on the website. You could download it and you could do it, this afternoon if you wanted to.
Fantastic.
And then the other one is at Sacred Heart University, July 30th. This is our 4th annual Shoulder Check Showcase. And that's where, like I said, we have all this great support from these incredible NHLers and PWHLers who will come out for our charity game. So anybody in Connecticut or the Northeast, please come.
That's a beautiful rink too. I've been there.
It is. It's our first time,
Stunning.
so we're leveling up. We used to be at Terry Connor's rink in Stamford. And we packed the house there for 3 years and kind of outgrew it. So now we're lucky to have the chance to take it to Sacred Heart, which is
that's stunning there.
great.
Yeah, you'll love it.
Well, one of the beauties of our audience, Rob, is they really connect with things like this. So I know those of you out there are going to be running to this website. The other beauty of running a podcast, Rob, is that we get to do a lot of micro clips, and we have a lot of audience that watches those. So we will be sharing that message across social media. Obviously, for everyone listening, the links for this are right in the show description right now. You could pause it and go there. It's been there the whole time. But Rob, we're going to help you because you've helped so many people, man. It's truly inspiring work. And again, episodes like this are so important, just to have the conversation and to show people. So if you're out there and there's a conversation you need to be having within your organization, whether you're a player, a coach, a parent, anyone, have the conversation. Free resources. I mean, people love hearing that, right? Rob, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you. You guys are awesome. Love it.
Yeah, so are you, buddy. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey, everybody. If you have any comments, remember, email us, team@ourkidsplayhockey.com. Check out the show notes today. There's plenty of stuff there for you. And enjoy your hockey, enjoy your day, and we'll see you on the next episode. Take care, everybody. We hope you enjoyed this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Make sure to like and subscribe right now if you found value wherever you're listening, whether it's a podcast network, a social media network, or our website, ourkidsplayhockey.com. Also, make sure to check out our children's book, When Hockey Stops, at whenhockeystops.com. It's a book that helps children deal with adversity in the game and in life. We're very proud of it. But thanks so much for listening to this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey, and we'll see you on the next episode.